The Ukrainian government and pro-Russia separatist fighters in the east have agreed to a ceasefire. After 5 months of fighting, the deal includes the withdrawal of tanks and heavy weaponry. It also allows for deliveries of humanitarian aid. But there's skepticism that the truce will hold in a conflict that's killed more than 2,600 people. Paul Brennan reports from the eastern city of Donetsk.
Central Donetsk, late afternoon. Lenin Square, where separatists rallied and recruited, is once again a place where children can go rollerblading. The contact group convened in Minsk under a heavy burden of expectation. Ahead of the talks, there had been confident predictions that a deal would be possible. There appeared a realization on all sides that the military conflict in East Ukraine is no longer winnable. At the NATO summit, the Ukrainian president described his interpretation of the plan.
In this protocol, there is 12 practical steps for establish peace and stability in part of the Donetsk and Lugansk region of Ukraine, with the respect of the sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of Ukraine. As we said, this is the key issue now, the basis for the finding out a peaceful solution of the crisis on the east of Ukraine.
But even after the signing, pro-Russian leaders warned that their separatist ambitions are undimmed.
This does not mean that our aim to break off from Ukraine is over. No. The ceasefire is just a necessary step in order to stop bloodshed among the united people.
There has been significant bloodshed over the past 5 months. More than 2,600 people have been killed, according to UN estimates. 1 million are estimated to have fled their homes in the face of artillery and rocket attacks. On the front lines outside the southern city of Mariupol, news of the ceasefire agreement coincided with the firing of a barrage of rockets aimed at Ukrainian military positions. The soldiers here remain deeply skeptical that the truce can hold.
In the end, there's always peace. But on which conditions? If they take all their forces from our territory, if the separatists put down their weapons, then I don't have a problem.
But as the ceasefire actually took effect, a wary silence descended across the conflict zone. After 5 months of bitter fighting and repeated violations of previous ceasefires, it will take some considerable reassurance before the people of eastern Ukraine will believe in this new deal. But the alternative is a frozen conflict, a war which neither side can win, and nobody wants that. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera, Donetsk.
European Union officials in Brussels have agreed on new sanctions against Russia, but they could be suspended if the ceasefire holds. The measures will be implemented on Monday and will target more Russian individuals with travel bans and asset freezes. They're also aimed at Russia's banking, energy and defense sectors. The ceasefire in Ukraine was announced as NATO revealed that it's creating a new rapid response force to deal with threats within days. The so-called Spearhead Group is to be based in Eastern Europe, but its focus would include the Middle East. Jonah Hull reports now from Newport in Wales.
As the NATO summit closed, reaction to news of a ceasefire in Ukraine was cautious.
At the same time, we strongly support President Poroshenko's efforts to pursue a peaceful resolution to the conflict in his country. The ceasefire announced today can advance that goal, but only if there is follow-through on the ground. Pro-Russian separatists must keep their commitments, and Russia must stop its violations of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Earlier, in an effort to reassure NATO members on Russia's borders, the Secretary-General announced plans for a rapid reaction force based in Poland that would be able to respond to threats anywhere in 2 to 5 days.
This decision sends a clear message. NATO protects all allies at all times. And it sends a clear message to any potential aggressor. Should you even think of attacking one ally, you will be facing the whole alliance.
For those on the former Soviet front line, it was a message that seems to have stuck. As one of the states bordering Russia, members of NATO, do you now feel that your security is assured?
Yes, because it's clear that collective defense principle is there. Everyone knows it, and now also some practical steps even, well, should increase this also psychological feeling.
Not strictly on the summit agenda, but key to discussions that have taken place here were efforts to carve out a coalition, even a strategy, in the fight against the self-declared Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. On Friday, foreign and defence ministers from 10 countries met to form what the US Secretary of State called a core coalition.
Key NATO allies stand ready to confront this terrorist threat through military, intelligence, and law enforcement, as well as diplomatic efforts. And Secretary Kerry will now travel to the region to continue building the broad-based coalition that will enable us to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL.
All of this will cost money. NATO members recommitted themselves to spend 2% of GDP on defence, reversing years of decline in spending. It is hoped that from this summit, billed as the most important since the end of the Cold War, a new NATO will emerge, better funded and more able to respond to turbulent times. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera, Newport, Wales.